Thank you, Professor Rowinski, for this interesting talk. Now maybe we have time for 2-3 questions on these last 2 talks. Prego. Hassan.
Thank you very much. I would like to direct my comments to Jeff Sachs. I think you explained it pretty well, that the political problem is what is really stopping the world from going in the right direction. You said that pretty well. But I do see some hope, and I can just mention just 2 examples to support this. If you recall, Jeff, COP21, the Paris meeting, there was a global initiative, initiated actually by your friend, Bill Gates, and supported by 30 global billionaires, including our African billionaire, Dangote. And here, they wanted to work with governments. The initiative was made by the global billionaires and governments. There were 20 countries, 20 governments agreed to this, including, of course, the US government, Obama. And that is to work very hard to develop this public and private financing to achieve breakthroughs in cost reduction to power the world with clean energy and make it affordable to consumers worldwide. Apparently, this is progressing. It may not be progressing at the level that we want, but it's really moving along, and more countries are joining now. So this is one hope, one area where I feel that there is some hope. But the second, which is really very intriguing, it happened in COP22, the meeting in Morocco, where 40 countries, and many of them are African countries, including South Sudan, including Sudan, and many others, have agreed to use only renewable energy by the year 2050. So these are governments agreeing to something. But of course, probably they have to invest in the technology to make it cheap and affordable. So this, with the previous one that I mentioned, is probably some kind of hope that maybe we can break this political problem. So I would like Jeff to comment on that. Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Okay, so I have a comment after the talk of Professor Rowinski, which has shown, this work on around the Arctic and comparison between what's happening in the Arctic and downtown, in Europe, just to convey a message. I think that this is a clear situation where we want the world should do a common policy. And now, about the Arctic, I had the chance of being with my minister a few weeks ago in Berlin, where there was the conference on Arctic. And then there it was very important and very interesting to see that Europe was represented as a whole. So in the problem of Arctic, all the scientific and political issues, Carlos Moedas in particular was there all the time, taking care of the common view of all Europe. Of course, there were all the other European countries. So this is, I think, an important message that at least all one continent is as a similar attitude. And so this is what I was thinking when you were showing, exactly the Arctic situation. Also, I think that we have to inform people of what is going on. So also from your talk, it was very interesting to see the training activity that you have for young people, because everybody must be aware. Then Professor Sachs dictated us the new, the 10th. So it's what here in this location we must obey. I mean, no doubt. And so now we should do a little bit some closing remarks, and seems to me that really this day was pretty much efficient, because there is clear agreement, evidence that the problem is dramatic, that we are responsible of this problem, but also we have the knowledge, and the human strength to try to counteract this problem. So now it's important to convey this information to policymakers. I was a little bit depressed from the last sentences of Professor Sachs when I see that, I didn't know that even our friend Steve Chu was not able to create a roadmap, but this is the story. But I think that this idea that came to this Pontifical Academy of Science, and in particular, pardon? Yes, I was saying Steve, as a physicist, I was saying Steve Chu. But and, okay, so I think that the idea that came to this Pontifical Academy to join the efforts with the National Science Council to have, this day was in particular the idea of Archbishop Sorondo was a very far-viewing one. In fact, now we have a synthesis of how is the situation. We are ready to make a statement that we can use for abroad, in particular for the politicians, and also give as a legacy to our PSIACU from Poland. And so I think at this point I would ask Professor Schellenhuber to make the final statements.
Could I just answer the...
Please.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point in a response to Professor Hassan's question. There are lots of good things happening in the world in terms of renewable energy investments, scaling up, moving to electric vehicles. Every one of those pillars is underway. And the emissions are not rising as fast as the world economy, and there's a change of the energy mix. Nowhere near fast enough, not even close, to achieve the goals that we've set. So this is not, this is where this becomes an issue of quantification, not an issue of examples. And it's possible to give optimistic speeches in this area because there are many, many good things happening. The costs of renewables have come down dramatically. They will continue to. Volkswagen has announced that it's going to go massively into electric vehicles and sell them. One recent announcement was $23,000 EV with a significant range. That's a major, major change. So you can point to those good examples, but I can point to many other examples of the continuation of the current processes, the continued massive investments to this date in the coal industry, for example. Obviously, the continued fracking and the new investments that are being made, new LNG facilities, new oil and gas exploration, new pipelines still being built. Maybe they'll go bankrupt, that's what we have to hope for, but still being built. So we are not on a decisive path, which is what a decarbonization by mid-century would imply, or even to 2060 or 2070. The scenarios of the oil companies are not based on such a scenario. What they report to their shareholders or to the SEC or in public announcements are based on a continuing rise of fossil fuel use to 2040. That's their forecast. You can look at Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron. They're now making public statements. We are in favor of the Paris Climate Agreement, up, 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 because we're so important, we're going to have to continue this. Not to mention the coal-based industry in Asia. So my point is not that there are a failure of many positive trends, but rather, are we on a path for success? And the answer is no. And a path of success requires a change of public policy, not simply good examples, and not only public policy in developing countries, because you could name 150 countries signing on to the right thing, but if 10 sign on to the wrong thing, we're not going to make it. So the point is, I'm deliberately focusing on the negative news, because when you're trying to keep within a budget, that's the operative principle, is the negative news, not the positive news.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm glad I have the last word after Jeff Sachs now told you how demanding, how challenging the situation is. So I broadly agree with you in that we are not on the right course and we do not have a plan. On the other hand, you know, my special field is nonlinear dynamics, and even in society, small trends can be amplified into bringing about sea change. So while nature on the one hand may be tipped into a new state, we may also tip our society in a new state, and actually maybe your 10 commandments will achieve that, or maybe this conference will achieve it. So I still believe in this type of changes which do not come about by a master plan, because, you know, if the world is in the end saved in a confused, chaotic way, I'm still happy that it will be saved. So it's very hard, of course, to do a summary of such a meeting. Let me first say that this was a world-class meeting, and also with the contributions. You know, when you attend a conference, there are some good and some bad speeches. You nod off and fall asleep in between, and when you wake up, because there is a fantastic lecture, but I didn't fall asleep today, and you didn't fall asleep. I think it was an extremely high level at all interventions, and this is in a way characteristic for the Pontifical Academy, because really great minds are here, but I think everybody who contributed did a fantastic job, so I'm really glad about it. Now, what we did in the background, because it's always like that, there are some people sitting in the first row, the presidents and the directors and the chancellors, but behind the scene, of course, people are working very hard in order to try to summarize things. So we have actually in the background created something like a draft summary. Of course, it's a draft, and I'll tell you about the procedure before I expose it to you. The idea would be that this draft, I'll read it out to you, and we cannot debate it now for 3 hours or so on. You need some time to read it, but we'll send it around, and you have a week times to make comments and either to criticize things or to add things, positive examples, for example, the positive example. And when we will try to consolidate it, and when it will be open for signing it. That's how we do it at the Pontifical Academy. You must not sign it, you are not forced to sign it, but if you're willing to do it, this will be a document that will be disseminated, it will be fed into the process for the Katowice symposium, which is a very important event as well. And maybe we can spread the word, and make a contribution. And as I said, I fully understand Jeff Sachs we have discussed with many times, and I know he has even fallen out of love with Germany, although before he thought Germany is on the right course, but I promised you that in our coal commission we will try to get back on track, and I'm still hopeful. But anyway, of course, if we cannot afford to save our planet, we can even less afford to ruin our planet. So that is my bottom line. So here I'll just read out once for you the draft statement, which was based on the one hand on the introduction, which is in this agenda, that was put together by Marcelo Sanchez-Sorondo on behalf of the Pontifical Academy and by Professor Inguscio on behalf of GNR. And then we have added a number of elements that emerged from our debate today. Yeah? So this statement is more or less about the problem. So we added potential solutions, and I'll refer to the bottom line. So here you have this. So you have this draft conference statement. So more than 50 years after the first reports, climate change is taking a growing toll on humanity and on ecosystems at local, regional, and planetary scales. The scientific community has deeply investigated the causes and consequences of climate change, from primary drivers, fast anthropogenically driven increase in use of fossil fuel, releasing greenhouse gases, in turn causing global climate warming, to impacts, some of which, loss of biodiversity and so on, are devastating the stability of life on Earth and may pose a serious risk for human well-being and even survival. Don't mind whether some of the English grammar is wrong, we will correct that, and some of the other things. So, however, the political response, and this is in line with what Jeff Sachs just told us, has fallen short of scientific recommendations in terms of the needed urgency and global reach of climate action. Political negotiations have not resulted in enough concrete actions, such as investment in research and innovation for reducing future greenhouse gas emissions and help protecting planetary and human health. Indeed, climate change-driven pressure becomes so strong that they can originate or generate famine and encourage the spreading of diseases, large migrations, and even conflicts and wars. Pope Francis' encyclical on climate change, Laudato Si', stands as the most powerful warning that human-driven climate change is a real and urgent problem, and that we must change our daily habits to live more sustainably. So, quote, "Never have we so hurt and mistreated our common home as we have in the last 200 years," is a prominent appeal to revert a failure of conscience and responsibility. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are also setting the blueprint for equitable use of resources, in turn mitigating climate change and fighting hunger and poverty around the planet. In preparation of the COP24 United Nations Climate Summit in Katowice in December this year, this meeting sets the ground for a final call towards immediate and strong actions to curb global warming and its negative effects on humans and the environment. The challenge before us is to reduce emissions by half every decade and decarbonize the entire global economy by 2050. This means that easy and obvious solutions need to be implemented immediately across scales and sectors, from reducing food waste along the entire value chain to increasing energy efficiency and fostering behavioral change towards sustainable and healthy lifestyles. Further, and this is one of the important insights from this meeting, we need to switch from a vision of industry 4.0 towards a practice of nature 4.0. And let me elaborate a little bit. What emanated and what emerged from today's discussion is that there are many solutions available which are based on nature. So if we combine nature-based solutions, like building houses from wood, for example, and sequestering carbon, with highly advanced technological options, like even machine learning, artificial intelligence, when we have powerful ways of reducing emissions. So this entails rediscovering the ingenious and often simple solutions offered by nature and combining them with the most advanced and visionary technology we have at our disposal. So in a way, going back to nature, like photosynthesis, but combining it with our most advanced, sorry, this is, I have my computer here and you have the other thing. Can you scroll it up? Just to the, yeah, that's the second page. We have at our disposal. So this could significantly decrease emissions and address sustainable nature-based negative emission solutions or carbon dioxide removal. So that would mean let's nature act for us. So planting trees is a good thing actually, but there are even better ways of doing it. To accelerate the implementation of solutions, regions should be chosen on a competitive basis as transition super labs. For instance, as a flagship project within Horizon Europe, but also across the developing world, these regions will demonstrate as real-life labs that the great transformation can be achieved. We need to integrate all stakeholders and include capacity building and education for sustainable innovation across sectors. Now, we are the last generation that can stop climate change before it causes irreversible change to our planet. Time is almost over and action must be taken immediately by all worldwide. But hope remains. Humanity still has the ability to work together in building our common home. So we cite Laudato Si. And finally, everything seems impossible until it's done, Nelson Mandela. So this is the draft statement, and you see there are a few new elements in it, in particular combining nature-based solution with our most advanced and ingenious insights, which we produce at GNR, at the Max Planck Society in Harvard, Stanford, and so on. I think this is a powerful alliance, and it could actually help us to get out of this planetary crisis. Okay, so this is the statement, and of course it's not perfect, and it's not reflecting everything, because it was just done in half an hour behind the scene. But we will send it out to everybody, and when you can improve it, you can deny it, you can ridicule it, whatever you like, but I think we will improve it together. And you have a week's time, and then we will send out the final statement, and it's open for signature, of course. And I think it is a powerful document which we will feed in to Katowice, to the COP24, because Poland is a very important country when it comes to decarbonization, and it has a fantastic academy, which we learned today. So it's both sort of contributing to the advancement of science, but you are also a hotspot for the whole question of transformation, clearly. Yeah? And even beyond the COP24, I think this statement can play an important role. So that's all I have to say, and I thank you very much for your contributions. Marcelo, would you like to conclude? You are the master of this.
Only to say thank you to all people. Really it was an exceptional meeting, and the conclusion showed that we put many important things, and this could be a good preparation to the meeting that we have in Poland, and of course to the general problem that we have, that the Pope in the last meeting, plenary session of the Academy, asked just this, that we study more and more the solution of the problem of climate change. That is the more important problem that we have, together with the question of the atomic menace. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So.